Yeah, okay, awesome. So I'm part of the International Thwaites Glacier Collaboration, working with Karen Hayward and Rob Hall at the University of East Anglia, and Anna Wallin in Gothenburg, and Peter Davis at Bass. And even though this is called the International Thwaites Glacier Collaboration, they ended up going to Dotson. And I have some observations of turbulent mixing under Dotson Ice Shelf that I would like to share with you today. The reason they went to Dotson is that Dotson is easy to reach and it has a high contribution of ocean melt to its overall ice shelf mass loss. We want to understand how much heat the modified circumpolar deep water that is on the shelf there loses upwards due to mixing on its way towards the grounding line. And that's shown in this cartoon here on the right-hand side. Warm circumpolar deep water enters at the ice shelf front, flows into the cavity. We think that there is an about 800 meter deep sill before then entering the deep basin where the grounding line is located, causing melt there, cooling, mixing with water, with meltwater, and then exiting the ice shelf cavity again. We have a bottom tracking AUV that measures turbulent microstructure to calculate turbulent kinetic energy dissipation rate, which is mostly shown as epsilon. I might just call this mixing, even though it's not technically mixing. This is the AUV that we use. This is AutoSub long range, which has a turbulent microstructure instrument package mounted on its nose cone. It also has upward and downward looking ADCPs and a C2D sensor. The Dotson Ice Shelf is located in the Amundsen Sea. This is a top-down view of the ice shelf front region of this. And you can see in light blue the tracks that the AUV took into the ice shelf cavity. We have one track going into the eastern cavity where the inflow is located, one track that goes into the central cavity that passes by the mooring location that Claire Ayres was talking about this morning, and then one track that goes along the ice shelf front here. We also have C2D and vertical microstructure profiler information along the ice shelf front here, shown by blue and the orange diamonds. The C2D and the VMP at the ice shelf front show us information over the entire water column depth, but the AutoSub long range is just following the bathymetry at 100 meters from the seafloor, so we're always bottom tracking with that ALR. This now is a cross-section of that ice shelf front. We are looking out of the cavity. The eastern side is on the right, the western side is on the left. The top panel shows in colors the north-south velocity component measured by the lowered ADCP. We have inflow in blue shown here, which is bottom intensified and hugs that eastern boundary. We have an outflow at shallower depths, which is shown here in the northward red colors, and the AutoSub long range measurements are shown as the colored dots here, just to show that this matches relatively well with what we saw with the LADCP. Same thing again with the vertical microstructure profiler showing turbulent mixing here. The lighter colors is more mixing, the darker colors is less mixing, and you can see that we have more mixing in this inflow core, which is bottom intensified. I'm going to ignore all of the surface intensified mixing here. And the measurements from the ALR, where we have them overlapping with the VMP, do also show reasonably good agreement, which means that the instrument mounted on our ALR was able to capture the mixing that the more accurate vertical microstructure profiler was also able to capture. So much to the ice shelf front. Now having a closer look at the inside of this cavity. This is again a top-down view of the tracks that we went with the ALR. I've plotted the depth averaged currents that were measured by the ALR. So this is water speed relative to ground, and The colors on the left-hand side show temperature and the colors on the right-hand side show mixing. If we look at the left-hand side here with the temperature first, we can see that we have a inflow coming in here, which transports warm water into the cavity, but that inside the cavity where it's deeper, we do actually have warmer water than what we find at the front of the cavity. We also see some evidence of topographic steering of these currents, which seem to follow the isobaths. With the mixing, we see high mixing in that high speed inflow and lower values of mixing everywhere else. I can also confirm from what Claire Eyre said that close to the bottom where the mooring was located, the currents seem to be going in all directions. This here now leads me on to showing you this eastern dive track as going into the cavity and out of the cavity simply as a time series. Hold on tight. This is a plot in many parts, but I promise it will make sense towards the end. I've just plotted the ice shelf draft here in gray at the top as a reference. We're going into the cavity for 18 kilometers and then we're coming back out of the cavity again. The right-hand scale here shows depth. I've plotted here the angle of the incident between the direction of the current and the slope of the bathymetry. If this is 90 degrees or 270 degrees, the current is perpendicular to the isobath. And if it is 180 or 360 degrees, it is going parallel to the isobath. That's shown in the shading in the background with a little bit of tolerance. So everything that's beige is flowing perpendicular to the bathymetry, and everything that is brown is flowing parallel to the bathymetry. The color of these dots really just shows how steep is the bathymetry gradient. This makes more sense once I've put the bathymetry in here. To calculate the gradients of the bathymetry, I use Bed Machine version 3, which is shown in the dark gray here. What is there in reality is the light gray, which is the bathymetry measured by ALR, but I only have that along the ALR track. So I don't have that in 2D, so I can't calculate the direction of the gradient or the steepness of the gradient normal to the track of the ALR. We see that the bathymetry from Bed Machine matches the bathymetry as seen by ALR quite well at the front of the cavity, and then it sort of degrades as we go into the cavity. I have plotted here in the green dots the speed of the ocean currents in the cavity. Again, these are not plotted as distance relative to the bathymetry. These are plotted against this axis here on the left-hand side. And that really just shows the current speed. The dots higher up is faster ocean currents. The dots further down are slower ocean currents. And the color of the dots shows mixing. So light green is high mixing, dark green is low mixing. And what I want to show here is how this correlates with the incidence angle of the current versus the bathymetry. I've shown this here in these orange circles. Where we have high speed currents with high mixing, we're more likely to be going parallel to the bathymetry gradient. This is shown here. It works out quite well over there, and it works out relatively well when we're coming back out of the cavity. This doesn't work everywhere, but I will show you later on that this is actually a significant correlation. We can also look at the temperature anomaly. So you would expect that if we have high mixing and water is warmer lower down than higher up, we should have a positive temperature anomaly because we're mixing that warm water from below further up into the water column. And that does also work out here. We have high temperature anomalies in areas with high mixing. We can also look at the current shear, parameterized here by the gradient Richardson number, and that is low in areas where we have high mixing, high current velocities, and high temperature anomalies. Okay, so this was a somewhat confusing figure, which is trying to show everything at once, but is this actually significant if we plot this against each other? So what I'm trying to argue here is that positive temperature anomalies, vertical current shear, a long slope speed, the steepness of the bathymetry, the current speed, and the Richardson number are all somehow correlated to the mixing that we see in this cavity. And we can see that this is extremely noisy, but does somewhat work out. So we've plotted here temperature anomaly versus mixing, and I've always got the R² value and the P value at the top here, and the trend line in orange with uncertainty dashed. Vertical current shear is a bit nicer. That can explain up to sort of 19% of the variability that we see in our mixing. The long slope speed, again, not particularly great, but if we've got higher long slope speeds, we are more likely to have higher mixing. The steepness of the bathymetry is a lot more promising, about 33% of variability explained by that. The current speed here, again, not great, but somewhat correlated. And then Richardson number is anti-correlated. We would expect low Richardson number, especially Richardson number that is below 1/4, which is shown in the red dots over here, to be associated with higher levels of mixing, which we do also see. All of these are significant at less than 1%, but none of them are able to explain all of the mixing that we see. So they are not sufficient to explain all of the mixing variability that we have. We can also compare our observations in the Dotson Ice Shelf cavity with other observations out there. Luckily for me, there aren't actually that many, so this is not that much to show. I've split up all of my observations. This is the eastern dive track, the central dive track, the dive track along the ice shelf front, all of the dive tracks inside the cavity, and then the vertical microstructure profiler outside of the cavity. What we can see is that in the inflow, mixing is higher. In the center of the cavity, it's kind of low. If we look at the entire water column, we have much higher values. And then we can look at other ice shelf cavities. So Runner Ice Shelf was also an ALR with a micro rider attached to it, which has similar spreads in turbulent mixing as we see. Through George VI, there was a vertical microstructure profiler through a borehole, which has a much higher vertical extent of measurements, which is why we see that big tail going to high values. But the mode of the distribution is at similar values as we see underneath Dotson. Thwaites vertical microstructure profiler, again, massive range because we're going through lots of different turbulence regimes, so close to the seafloor, but also right in the boundary layer between the ice shelf and the buoyant meltwater plume. And then we have a moored instrument under Larsen C, which is sitting right in that turbulent boundary layer plume, and that has higher mode of mixing than we see close to the bottom underneath Dotson Ice Shelf. Overall, I think we're doing reasonably well compared to other observations that are not in that buoyant plume. All of the mixing seems to be sort of on the order of 10 to the -9 watts per kilogram. And we can now have a look at what the consequences for heat fluxes are, because what we were interested in here is really what this does for melt rates in the Dotson Ice Shelf cavity. So overall, mixing is quite low, close to the seafloor. The vertical heat flux is thus also quite low at 0.06 watts per square meter. And that means that the modified circumpolar deep water in this cavity loses very little heat upwards before interacting with the grounding line. We think that the travel time to the grounding line is about 2 months. And that means that we would lose a really insignificant amount of heat on the way there. If all of the vertical heat flux were to melt ice, and only the heat flux in that bottom 100 meters of the modified circumpolar deep water had any influence whatsoever, we would have a melt rate of sort of 0.002 to 0.01 meters per year, which is much lower than published estimates, which are 6 to 18 meters per year, averaged over the entire ice shelf. So additional heat to melt ice must be supplied through other processes than those that we measured, for example, that buoyant meltwater plume at the grounding line. I'll leave it up here with conclusions because I'm running out of time, and the preprint of the paper that this is based on is up on Ocean Sciences. So if you want to have a look, you're more than welcome to do so. Thank you very much.
All right. Excellent, Maren. Thank you so much for that.